Hello and welcome to Vox Markets. I'm John Human and thank you for joining us for today's investor webinar with Kanabo. The medicinal cannabis company recently reported a strong set of half-year figures which saw accelerated growth on the back of the recent acquisition of telehealth group, the GP Service. We'll shortly be speaking to Avihu Tamir, Group CEO, and Suleman Sacranie, founder of the GP Service, and asking them your questions about the strategy behind what has so far been a transformational year for the group. But before we do, we'll be hearing a presentation from the company talking us through the group's recently announced unaudited half-yearly results and updated strategy. Thanks once again for joining us. We hope that you find today's presentation useful.
So thank you, John, for the kind introduction. We're going to talk today about the post-merger integration between the GP Service and Kanabo. And as we know, this happened already in February. We worked quite a lot merger happening and to get the two teams working together. But just before jumping into basically the comparison and how the new company looks right now, I want to touch a bit about what's happening in the cannabis industry in the last year. On one hand, is growing extremely fast. We see that medical programs across Europe is now popping up, and the European market is literally becoming a significant market in medical cannabis. US is very dominant. The market is reaching $27 billion and expecting to go over or close to $40 billion. But one of the interesting keys that we see in the industry right now is markets that were quite stagnant for a while. So several years after the medical program have started, we saw markets like Australia and Israel really staying on the same amount of patients. And lately, we're talking in the last 2 years, there's a shift. Many new patients joining, physicians feeling more comfortable to prescribe. Australia, year by year in the last 2 years, 170%. Israel, almost 100% of growth of patients. And this is what we're foreseeing happening in the next year in Great Britain. Other markets are booming as well in Europe. German market obviously is talking about beyond medical cannabis, and Switzerland as well. Just to understand the general size of the European market for the use of medical cannabis, regulated and unregulated, is 23 billion euros as of today. But the UK market is where we're focusing, and we believe there's a vast interest and big opportunity coming in 2023. The market right now is roughly around 17,000 patients, and it's equal to 40-50 million pounds a year that these patients are paying for their medicines, and still a very early market by any definition. But the UK market is one of the fastest growing medical markets in the world, 425% increase. And we're expecting this percentage to hold for at least the next 2 years. So that means that the number of patients in the upcoming years is going to be very significant. In addition, the UK patient, cannabis patient, is paying a monthly payment that is higher than any other medical market as of today in the world. So in average, £200 a month. And still we see retention of patients that is extremely high, above 80%, similar to some life-saving drugs that we see. Now, the potential of cannabis is much beyond just a first aid for anxiety and pain. It's really replacing some of the quite problematic medicines we have in the healthcare system of today. The first one, that obviously many knows about, is the pain management, opiates. It's a pandemic, a big pandemic in the US, but a significant challenge to the UK market as well. If you see the numbers here, 1 of 4 UK adults are complaining of chronic pain. and 3 million out of these are taking opiates on a daily basis. Opiates is the number one death reason from medicine overdose. And this is a clear target market for medicinal cannabis. Physicians are looking for a solution for this opiate pandemic. Maybe the second challenge is benzos. It's Valium, diazepam, Xanax. In this category of mental health in general is challenging. It's very hard to get treatment on the NHS. As of today, 8 million people on waiting lists for these types of medicines. And again, medicines are addictive, medicines that are number 2 in the cause of drug-induced overdose. So just number 2 behind opiates. And the third level is the sleeping aid, sleeping medicine, insomnia. 48% of people that are complaining about sleep problems are taking everyday sleep medicine. Very addictive. If you're starting to take medicine to sleep better, most likely you're going to stay on this medicine. So cannabis is a type of, a whole range of medicines that you can really solve a lot of the additional challenges in the markets. A bit of what happened with Kanabo in the last 6 months. So since the GP deal that happened in February, we grew the GP service sales team, boosting sales of the GP. We produced multiple runs of the pain management medicine for the UK market, and now selling in the UK market, the only company that have a vaporizer meter dose medical device for cannabis. We launched e-commerce. We built a new marketing strategy. As you know, if you follow the RNSs, Agritech was launched, a platform that will secure long-term our supply chain and revenue stream that will come very soon in the near future. We signed a significant contract with a provider that will bring the GPS to become the backend for NHS GPs that want to prescribe private prescriptions. We believe this is a big opportunity, and Suleman is going to talk about this soon. And we established our pain clinic that is being led by Mehran Afshar, a specialist that will lead this clinic. If we look on the new enlarged company, we now have a vertical company that have a control over raw materials without taking the risk of the agriculture risk and production risk, but have strategic partnerships to secure these assets. Medical products, medical devices, production partners in the UK and in Europe, telemedicine platform, the GP, that is very unique, one of the only ones that have both being able to be private and connected to an NHS. And distribution channels, about 4,000 pharmacies in the UK, online distribution capabilities, and partners in Germany for entering the German markets. Just to understand what's the biggest pain today in the UK market healthcare. On one hand, we're looking on waiting times. And waiting times for GPs, someone that's coming from outside, someone that's moving now to the UK and coming from Israel, it's insane. Needing to wait for a week or even 2 weeks to see your GP is quite different to what a lot of European countries are used to. But when you're looking on the secondary care, both waiting times are much more painful. We're talking on months, and the affordability and bureaucracy to see a specialist. And cannabis is falling into these set of categories and indications that usually a specialist will look for. pain, anxiety, a lot of the psychiatric indications. But currently, one of the biggest hurdles of cannabis, it's not the physicians, it's the knowledge in the market. So 84% of UK adults are saying that they didn't know that cannabis is available. So we have a major access problem, and you see it across the board. This is news about the prices. Kids with epilepsy needing to pay £1,200 a month for a cannabis medicine that can be sold in probably 10% of this price by medical cannabis companies. And I found this quite interesting. While NICE said that there is evidence that the medicine is working quite well for kids with epilepsy, the drug is not cost effective because of the price. So the pharmaceutical price of this is extreme, while the medical cannabis price of the same medicine will be a fraction of the cost. So being affordable and getting access to patients is for us a key. How do we do it? How do we get access to patients? So first of all, access to the prescription. The prescription is the entry point, and that's the one thing we need to solve. Easier access to see a specialist, to be able to get the right prescriptions and knowledge. And products, when we're talking about products, it's very important. When 80% of the market is flowers for smoking, it's a market that is a very niche market. It's a market that is targeting specifically people that want to smoke cannabis. And obviously, that's not the majority of the market. With the Kanabo inhaler device, when we talk about a meter dose device that is a medical device, the market is much, much bigger. On top of it, we are planning to launch next quarter a new delivery method that will be able to bring new customers and new potential patient groups. And the last one is GPS, full primary care. So beyond, we understand that cannabis is a part of a full picture. When you talk about a holistic approach for medical services, for healthcare, you can't just come as a cannabis clinic and be only a cannabis clinic, because sometimes cannabis is just one of the tools, and having the full GP suite is a key. So primary care is a part of the enlarged group of Kanabo. But we're solving the main key for medical cannabis. These are the three barriers that patients in the UK today have. First of all, NHS is very restricted. I would be blunt and I would say NHS is almost not prescribing medicinal cannabis. Private clinics are prescribing medical cannabis. Bureaucracy, in order to get a prescription, you need to bring your personal care, the NHS files, to the new clinic. It can take weeks, sometimes months. No one wants to deal with it, not the surgery, not the GP. And lack of physician support. So we solve these issues. And first of all, the GP service is a private health clinic that can prescribe controlled substance and unlicensed medicines as of today. The second point is real-time access to the patient data records. The GP service, although private, is connected directly to the NHS and have this real-time access. That means that immediately when the patient is seeing his physician, the physician has all his data record and can prescribe controlled substance without sending the patient to go and fetch additional documents. And how did we bring physicians to the clinic? Well, support of existing ones that the GPS already have. On top of it, giving company insurance to doctors gave them more confidence, and working with a team of doctors that are prescribing together, the multidisciplinary committee. And this is the way we solved the lack of support of physicians. And today I can say that the clinic has more than 10 physicians ready to prescribe. In general, we're looking on the big picture and the synergy. Kanabo is providing the products, the supply chain, and the GP, the technology, and the distribution. Together, putting together our pain clinic, a medical cannabis clinic, that will grow to many other opportunities. But the GP is not only a cannabis delivery tool for Kanabo. Telemedicine is having a revolution in the last few years. COVID really helped boosting the understanding that telemedicine is here to stay and is a key. And we believe that telemedicine will be both for primary and secondary care. I would ask Suleman, the founder of the GP service and our head of IT, to jump in and talk about the GPS.
Thank you very much, Avihu. Nice to be introduced. I guess Avihu's touched on some of the key critical components, but I guess with the GP service, it is all about being a complete telemedicine tech platform that kind of combines all key principles of healthcare. And that gives us the ability to scale with the technology as a SaaS offering. And I'll take everyone in a little bit of detail around that. If we start, first of all, with the integration with the NHS and access to the medical record, the key parameter around this, it gives doctors faster, easy access to efficient, to essential information about patients, which then helps them give safer treatment options and safer outcomes from this. And being a platform that is completely integrated into this, our doctors have access to this in real time during consultations. And as Avihu touched on, one of the key requirements around prescribing is the record access is required to be able to prescribe Schedule 2 and Schedule 3 drugs under which cannabis sits. So that part is very key within our system. If we take that one step further in relation to the electronic prescription side, we currently have the ability to transmit prescriptions to a network of over 4,200 pharmacies across the UK. On average, that's a pharmacy in every UK postcode. But the key component around that has now allowed us to leverage on that further. And we have a platform in development to launch an offer into GP practices across the UK to transmit private prescriptions for medications that are not covered under the NHS. So whilst GPs can issue an NHS prescription, the GP service is launching a solution that will allow GPs across surgeries to also issue private prescriptions. And that really takes us onto that complete end-to-end kind of aspect on the telemedicine roadmap. And with our form assessment treatments, the roadmap activity allows us to not only offer video consultation services, but enables patients to complete form assessments, to have medications delivered directly to them for selective treatments. And that really allows us to take into consideration what we're doing right now in primary care, where we're taking a complete end-to-end approach of both video and forms. And that is referred to as both video and online consultations. And I'll touch on that a little bit in the next slide. And before we continue, that's the real key component about being a dominant telemedicine provider is very much the additional verticals that GP service can enter into. And part of that is our B2B offering, which allows us to scale the ability to provide the service across corporates and other verticals, both as a white labeled service offering or a subscription offering. And this is already currently live in which we provide for both Superdrug and the co-op. And that's a key parameter for us going forward as well. If we kind of move on to the next slide and touch on that a little bit more on the uniqueness of the primary care infrastructure that we've applied. That now kind of takes us into the secondary care kind of aspect and gives patients access to medical cannabis. And I'll touch on why. If we look at the key uniqueness of the platform and what the GP service does, one of the issues right now we talk about is access to medical cannabis. And I guess being a primary care organization, we are already seeing patients for treatments such as pain. And the ability to actually be able to own that kind of market and then move that across and move those patients across secondary care is a very key offering. And that together is integrated across our technology, which is fully compliant and takes into consideration all the key integrations that are required to be able to access medical cannabis in this market. And that really completes the offering, because with this service across both primary and secondary care, we end up owning the entire chain, delivered through the technology that sets us up really well for both growth and scale going forward. And I guess they are the key parameters for both the GP service and the Kanabo integration as we go forward with the plans we have in place. I'll hand back to Avihu to continue on that aspect.
Thank you, Suleman. Okay, so what's next and how everything is coming together? So understanding the patient needs, I think for us is the core, really the core, because cannabis is one tool. The GP service is a great delivery tool that we have, but we're talking about technology. We're talking about how do we connect this technology, IP that the GP service have, and the vast products that the Kanabo team brought into the table. And it's really this connection of technology-driven healthcare and cannabis delivery. But if we want to talk about a bit more concrete, strategy for the near future. Immediate term, we're leveraging the existing assets of the GP service platform and growing quite fast the potential customers, obviously leveraging the thousands of patients into the medicinal cannabis industry. In the short term, the medical cannabis, the UK platform, is going to be up and running by the end of this year, and we're targeting 15% of the market by the end of 2023. Midterm, we understood that the GP SaaS solution is something that the industry needs very much. Both the new solution for medical cannabis, other prescribers, and other clinics, but beyond that, the capability to work with thousands of pharmacies and produce prescriptions, and the online appointments that we see other service providers that are looking for this solution. New territories for Kanabo will be mainly the German market, but additional market will join by the end of next year. So diving into these drivers, the first driver, Cannabis Online Platform UK. This is our pain clinic. So the cannabis platform, by the end of the year, going to be launched and prescriptions will be given. And just to understand, current market in the UK is 40 million. If we're looking on the speed that this market is growing, we expecting almost a £500,000 market by the end of 2024. We're talking about roughly 2 years. Massive growth, something that the industry haven't seen in a while. The UK medical cannabis production and operation. So our target is by the first half of next year to move our production into the UK. So just to understand, cultivation will still be done outside in more cheaper places, but the final blending and filling of our unique products will be done in the UK, having a much shorter supply chain, expecting a reduction of 40% in costs. And the JV, putting together the capability to have our own set of licenses for import, distribution, and the online pharmacy. This will happen by the beginning of next year. In the meantime, we're working with contract providers for doing these activities. Accelerating the GP service growth. So right now, we're growing the number of appointments on the platform by 100%. This will be done again by the end of this year. We're talking about quite a massive market, obviously a competitive market, but we see that the demand at this point is still exceeding the supply that there is in this market to see a private GP. Automated forms. It says the capability to go online, film a form, and get automatically a prescription. Obviously, this is much more scalable than seeing a doctor. In addition to the margins that are a bigger opportunity, bigger margins, there are big competitors in this market, but we have the facility, we have the GPs online, and we have the technology to compete in this market. And as Suleman mentioned, the new service that is dedicating for NHGPs that will be launched next year. Just to understand, the market as of today, overall market of prescription in the UK is massive. No one can estimate right now what percentage will NHS GPs will prescribe as a private once they will have this tool, because right now they have no tool. If a GP wants to prescribe electronically and that someone else will take the back end of providing it to the pharmacy and dealing with the pharmacy if there's nothing in stock, is something that is not existing. If you're going to the GP, you get a paper, and that's how you're getting a private prescription. So any percent from this 1 billion prescriptions will be a massive success. Third driver is the strategic driver, geographical expansion. So obviously beyond the UK, for cannabis, the most exciting market right now in Europe is Germany. Germany is basically already an existing market, quite big. We're talking about €250 million, expecting to be 650 million in the next 2 years. But this is medicinal only. The discussions is beyond medicinal market. In the next 2 years, probably Germany will become an adult use market, and then the numbers will be much higher. But when we're talking about medical market, it's key to understand that the biggest barrier to entry for a medical market is having a medical device certificate. And without that, you can't really sell anything else beyond an oil or a flower. And that's one of the unique positions that Kanabo is in. Additional market, as I mentioned before, Kanabo will be in one more market beyond the German and the UK market by the end of the year, and taking the GPS to a new market as well, already in several discussions with potential partners and governments to deploy the service of the GP. The last driver is R&D. R&D is remaining the key driver for Kanabo as an enlarged group. The inhaler device that is being sold in the UK is a medical device certified by the Ministry of Health in Israel, and will soon be a CE mark medical device across Europe. We passed audits, we're passing now additional audits, and we're targeting by the end of this year to have a full CE registration. Just to understand, looking at the market right now, in the US, the market for medical, for inhalers in general, for medical cannabis is roughly 25%. If you're looking at the German market, with the size of this market, that means that our addressable market will be 25% of the German, the European market, and probably the only company that will be able to sell this kind of device for the next several years. Additional sublingual delivery that will compete with oils in the market, that is roughly 20% of the market. The oils are very limited, and we're going to bring a fast-acting sublingual delivery method. And the SaaS solution that we mentioned a few times and Suleman talked about for the GP, development will be done by the end of this year and marketing starting on the first quarter of 23. Now we'll move into questions.
Welcome back, Avihu and Suleman. Thank you for the presentation. Lots and lots of ground covered there. Perhaps we can dig a little deeper into some of the things, some of the areas you covered. this scale of growth you're talking about in the UK medicinal cannabis prescriptions, 425% in the next couple of years to 450 million. What are the industry drivers that are making that happen? Obviously, it's coming from a relatively low base. What's really driving that incredible growth?
So this is something that we've seen in other markets as well. It's not unique to the UK. We saw it happening in Israel, in Germany, in Australia. It's happening right now. There is we call it an install base. There is demand existing in the market today that people that need relief, mainly pain management. This is the number one indication, but anxiety as well is an indication that we see is number two in cancer patients. And the minute that the knowledge of being able to receive medical cannabis prescription existing in the market, the minute that you have prescribers that are willing to prescribe, and obviously products, the industry is taking off quite quickly. In percentage, like 300-400% is something that is normal to the market in a early stage. As you've seen today, more mature markets will have a growth of roughly 100% year by year. Germany, that's probably the most mature market, is now growing in pace of around 50%. But still, we're talking about massive growth and speed.
So what might hold that growth up? So, I mean, you've mentioned, perhaps the UK is a little bit behind the curve as some more mature markets. You mentioned the presentation, there has been a lack of prescribing ability by physicians. But what is, what are the risks to the market growth, expectations that you have, and what can you as business do to overcome, those challenges?
So I would say the three risks that we see in the UK right now is, first of all, the challenge of bringing in products and sourcing quality products. This is by far right now one of the challenges of the market. Young market, good products are going to bigger markets like Germany, like Canada. So that's one challenge that most of the cannabis companies are facing. Another challenge is really sourcing and having physicians, specialized physicians that can prescribe. Many of them can make a lot of money today working in something else. Get them on board, get them comfortable with prescribing medicinal cannabis is a process that was holding back many of the other companies. With the GP service combined with Kanabo, we achieved putting together a pain clinic that already have physicians. There's physicians that understand cannabis, that are ready to prescribe, and we're bringing a product that is not existing in the market, a product that can go beyond people that just want to smoke the flowers. And this is really one of the unique selling points we're bringing.
So, I mean, it sounds in that sense that the GP service is absolutely critical to kind of seeding the market, as it were, to actually get this market moving in the UK. And the other thing I noticed in some of your presentation materials is that actually, that sort of, I think you call it product to patient. So actually, being able to get not just the product, and as you say, that, the importance of the supplies, but actually taking that through to a kind of holistic healthcare solution is actually a much more profitable business model, potentially. Can you talk us through perhaps, how telehealth actually helps you improve the profitability as a business?
Yeah, so many of the cannabis companies, what they started to do, and again, because they didn't have many other options, is cultivate, grow the plants, invest in big facilities, and really saw a loss-making business for a long run. And today we know that there's sufficient amount of cultivators, growers, and we saw the raw material price shrinking massively in the last few years. And production facilities are now becoming a commodity as well. So the value is being shifted to the last mile. And that makes sense because this is happening in almost any other business. In the end of the day, the ones that are having the highest margins are the companies that have the brand, and the relationship with the customer or patient in the last mile. And this is what's happening now with Kanabo in the GP service, because we have this direct relationship with the patients, we have the products and the brand, and all of the, I would say, the long tail, the risk of agriculture, the big investments and the costs, and we solved with strategic alliance and agreements.
Mm. I mean, thank you very much. So Suleman, I mean, you know, this sort of it sounds like the evolution of the market you would have, you know, as the founder of the GP service, seen coming a very long time ago. Can you sort of talk us through now what you saw and why you started on this road, and you know, is the market sort of developing in the way that you kind of anticipated?
I think when I kind of look back at the journey of the GP service, it's very clear to say that we entered this market space when telemedicine was not a thing, has not progressed in the UK. It was very progressed in some other countries, and Avihu kind of touched on where some of these other countries are more progressed in the cannabis space. But if you look at telemedicine, it was very much in line of that a couple of years ago in the UK. It was not there as such. And you try and say to patients, you're going to be seeing a doctor via video. I can recall days where patients were booking, but still waiting for the doctor to knock on their door. So it's the market has really changed, and changed really quickly. And I guess the main reason for that is COVID has played a part to that. But secondly, that patients are now also within the NHS looking to have consultations done remotely. And that's really taken our system to the next level, because by having a system that is fully integrated across all verticals and takes into account all the kind of compliance and regulatory matters, that really allows us to offer a service not within the public sector, which is what we are now on the framework within the NHS, but a private setting is what we're doing. And the benefit to us today is, as a primary care provider, we leverage on all that data and all the information we have today. And then now with the Kanabo, with Kanabo's acquisition, it allows us to enter a new vertical in what we kind of refer to as the kind of new aspect of what we're working on as a secondary care side. And the important part to that is really about leveraging the information and the data we already have, and being able to provide patients with the last mile and the last aspect of healthcare. Because today in primary care, we take them through to the prescription process, but not necessarily we can see them for everything. But being able to now add cannabis to that journey flow allows us to open up a new kind of remit, a new vertical that really makes us a clinic that completes the whole cycle of events.
I mean, it's a massive market. I think you mentioned in the presentation, it's £500 million a year already, and you know, and I think it's fair to say there's still, an industry in its infancy, telehealth in the UK. So you know, what drives this market? You know, what is it that you know you expect? You know, obviously there's lots of pressures on the NHS. Presumably, you're expecting those to kind of help you grow this as a business in its own right. You know, what do you need to do to scale it? You know, what sort of partnerships are we looking to do, and what sort of political drivers are kind of helping you?
Sure. So I think if we start with the NHS first of all, I think we see the NHS and what we do as a complementary kind of service. So if you think about it in one way, first of all, I think if you look at the NHS in trying to reduce its cost base and trying to find new funding, one area of doing that is through technology. So if you look at it today, you know, there's 15 million GP appointments missed across the year. And I believe that if you take 307 million sessions, which is how many are done each year through the UK, they say about 5% of those are missed. So about that refers to about £216 million a year that are missed appointments in person with the GP. That's a huge cost to the NHS. And by us being on that framework now, and other providers that are able to leverage technology with the use of that, that is providing a huge opportunity and a huge solution in reducing that cost base. But if you take that one step further in the private setting, what you're also doing now is providing accessibility. And that's what's not there today. If you think about access, there are all the issues of the time it takes to book an appointment with a GP, number one, the time it takes to then be seen. But now, if you think of it through another stage, if I have an issue, let's say I need to see my neurologist, for example, that could take me anywhere from 6 to 8 months to do. And by us as a platform being able to combine that journey for patients, you can really see why this is becoming an attractive marketplace for patients. And taking that one step further, just to finish off there, John, as well, you're realizing now that with the kind of generations that are moving forward, you're finding that with the technology kind of savvy kind of generations, you're finding this is becoming a norm. And that's what's happened in other countries where telemedicine is very normal to them. And when they've come to the UK, they've gone, I can't see my doctor online. But I think we are now getting there. And I think we've just hit that cusp of optimum efficiency in doing that. And I think for us now, it's about, we know what that looks like, and it's scaling that up. But to scale that up, that's going to need for us to ensure that we are obviously putting together the relevant processes, compliance and regulation, having the right IT infrastructure, security and protocols. And also what we're doing now is working with the NHS in looking at what other integrations we can be doing to make sure we have a complete end-to-end service that takes into consideration all the requirements from a patient, but also delivering a service that is safe and efficient for both patients and the doctors.
Thank you. I mean, you mentioned as well that it's a competitive space, and obviously something this attractive as an industry, it is going to attract lots of entrants. What sets you apart from some of your competition?
I think from my perspective, I think what sets us apart is having been in this from the very start. We're not coming in this now and saying we know what we're going to be doing in telemedicine. We started this journey when telemedicine first started. So we've got enough years of experience behind us now to know what works and what doesn't work. But the most important part for us is very much, John, is we've got a complete end-to-end solution. We don't just stop at the patient level. We don't stop at the doctor level. We don't stop at the pharmacy. We don't do bits. We complete that entire journey. And what we do is say, from the moment you come onto our system or you join our platform for anything you require, we will see that through. From the moment our doctors see you through the moment your prescription, it's all end to end. And I think both from a regulatory perspective and a patient perspective, that is what they want to see. They don't want to be seen that I've got this prescription here now, what do I do with it? Or I need to see this doctor, but you can only do half a job. We're doing something that completes that entire flow. And I think that's quite powerful in what we do.
Absolutely. Just turning sort of back to the wider business and the medicinal cannabis side of things as well. Avihu, you mentioned international expansion is obviously a very, very important part of the strategy, starting in Germany, but sort of overall, what does the whole international opportunity look like, and where are you targeting it, and what are the challenges you feel you're going to have to overcome as a business as you grow internationally?
So I think internationally, if we're looking at cannabis industry, this is the time where Europe is getting more of the focus now. If in the beginning we saw in the last few years, Canada was the first wave, then obviously the US is still the main market, the big market. Now for the first time, we're seeing all of the eyes moving to Europe. We saw 3 significant M&A deals happening in the last year with cannabis companies that mainly were bought or invested by US cannabis companies or tobacco companies. If we're looking at the tobacco industry now, 4 out of the 5 big tobacco players are already invested in the cannabis industry. 2 of them significant investments, 1 billion and above. So it's very clear that the European market is going to be a very significant medical cannabis market. And we will see consolidations in this market as well. For Kanabo, the European market is the focus. Germany, we have additional interesting markets like Poland, Italy. France is going to be a new market that we will see soon. Israel is not in Europe, but a market that we're looking at as well, became a significant market already. So there's quite a lot to do in Europe. One of the benefits, once you have a medical device registered in Europe, you have a fast track to use this registration in many other countries. If it's Australia, if it's most countries in South America and Canada. So you really have quite a lot of opportunities the day after.
So I guess it's a very important part of what's happening is the CE mark on the vape inhaler. What's the sort of trajectory of that? How what can we look out for in terms of milestones in the progress of that device?
So the device development is done. First generation has been already is selling in the UK. Feedback of patients couldn't be better. We have retention of 80% and above. So returning patients. Now we're in the last process of audits for getting the full CE mark for Europe. And again, we're expecting by the end of the year. That's the goal. We have some audit dates that are coming, and that will be a key milestone. Additional key milestone will be the launch of the online clinic and pharmacy. So we start having almost no dependency on distribution from our current distributors, but rather the GPS team, robusted team, will start delivering, supplying, and prescribing the products. And again, target by the end of the year. So we have 2 key milestones coming quite soon.
Yeah, so it's a big year really in terms of your sort of R&D ambitions. I mean, you're pretty much funded, I guess, recent placing to get you through certainly your immediate needs, your immediate investment needs.
Yeah, we're currently funded for the goals that we have and the pipeline that we have right now.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Anyway, thank you both very much. It's been an absolutely fascinating presentation, and as you pointed out, you're making lots of progress towards what's actually a very important set of products. Both the medicinal cannabis and the telehealth. So thank you once again to Avihu Tamir, Group CEO, and Suleman Sacranie, who's the founder of the GP service. Thank you very much. Thank you all for listening. And if you want to refer back to this presentation, you'll be able to find it at voxmarkets.co.uk. Thank you all.